¿Qué tal, amigo? Bueno, aquí están muy motivados, así que todo tuyo.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm so honoured to open up our Disrupt conference in Madrid today. My name's Stuart Dorman, as Angie said. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Sabio. And I know we're going to have a really fun and engaging day today. There's some great content, and it's a really exciting agenda. Now, when we first came up with the idea for our Disrupt conference, it was about six years ago when we first ran our Disrupt for the first time. And the original idea behind the conference was to look at technological disruption and how that was impacting the way that we as consumers were engaging with each other and engaging with the organizations that we deal with on a daily basis. And back then, you know, it was a time full of optimism and hope. And, you know, technology was really changing the world. We were, at that point, 10 years after the launch of the iPhone, and everybody had smartphones. They'd reached, you know, penetration across all of the market. And they were providing a platform for digital transformation as we know it today. Artificial intelligence was also, you know, at the top of the hype curve. Lots of us were getting used to the idea of self-driving cars and speaking to our computers, and, you know, it was becoming quite a normal thing. Social media was at the peak of its powers as well, and was reimagining the ways that we would all communicate with each other and the organizations that we deal with today. Back then, there really was a sense that technology was disrupting every business model, every product, and every service. And if you didn't disrupt yourself, somebody else will come along and do that for you. When we think about disruption now, particularly with the changes and disruptions that we've had over the last couple of years, it has a slightly darker feel to it, I would say. We tend to think more about geopolitical disruption that's impacting society as much as we do technology. Technology is still having that impact, but the last few years in particular, as I say, have been more geopolitically focused. Now, some would argue that is a fallout of the power that we were giving to the social media platforms. We didn't realize back then that every like and click and swipe that we were engaging with was providing these platforms with data that often meant they knew us better than we knew ourselves. And that could be used to manipulate us in ways that weren't always beneficial to society. But we can't blame Brexit on everything. And if we think about, you know, the changes that we've been through over the last few years with COVID and the pandemic and the lockdowns, and, you know, more recently, climate change feeling real, the awful situation that we've had over in Ukraine and the subsequent economic fallout and the political fallout from the back of that. You know, when we were pulling together the theme for Disrupt this year, we kept coming back to this famous Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. I think it accurately describes, you know, the way, the situation we're in at the moment. We certainly live in interesting times, and I think all of us would like things to be a bit more back to normal. And there was a word in the UK that we invented to describe this impending sense of doom that I think we've all been feeling over the last couple of years. And this word was the permacrisis, and it was voted as the word of the year back in the UK for the last year. And it describes an extended period of instability and insecurity. And when they voted for the word, they said it accurately described the awful feeling that so many people had had back in 2022. Now, one of the real fallouts of everything that's been happening over the last couple of years is that we've had a real surge in inflation all across Europe. You know, we've seen this inflation above 10%. And what that means is that all of us can feel this in our pockets. We've all got less money to spend. Everything feels noticeably more expensive. So we're all being much more selective about where we spend our money and who we spend it with. So as customers, we are much more price sensitive. We are much more considerate about where we spend our money. And, you know, all of us in this room are going to have to fight much harder as a result of this to win over the hearts and minds of our customers, to make sure that when they spend their money, they spend it with our organizations. And we know that customer experience is going to be the key battleground through which this plays out. And that's going to be one of the key things, obviously, that we're here to talk about today. But look, nobody sets out to create a bad customer experience. We all have a desire to create a great experience. The question is, how much do you prioritize it within your organization? Who owns it within your organization? And how do you maintain customer experience when budgets are being cut at the moment as a result of, consumer spending? And we always keep coming back to this piece of research that came out of the last economic recession, which was a piece of research conducted by the Harvard Business Review. And it was titled, "Stop Trying to Delight Your Customers." Many of you may have read this piece of research here, and it spawned this measure called the Customer Effort Score, which is focused on measuring the impact and the effort that customers are having to exert to engage with your organization. So I think all of us need to be really laser focused on this. We all need to think about the effort customers are having to put in when they engage with us. We're having to look at the customer journey and every single step that customers are taking and make sure that we're minimizing the effort the customer has to put in as much as we possibly can. And crucially, making sure that the data that we collect about the customer is staying with them on that journey so that we can make it as easy for them as possible. So a lot of people are looking at cloud technology as a way of helping them, to reduce effort and to create better customer experiences. And I think for many organizations, cloud has just been this kind of destination that we're all heading towards. And, when you get there, you magically transform your business and transform the way that you engage with your employees and your customers. But, the cloud has its pitfalls as well. It can be very expensive. In fact, one of the major failings of cloud is that, you get there and it can be more expensive than, the previous technology that you had before. So you've got to be very, very careful about cost, and you've got to be crystal clear what you want to do with the cloud technology when you've implemented it. And what a lot of people are looking to do is to use cloud technology to drive digital transformation. Again, this is going to be a big subject that we're talking about today. For us, digital transformation means that we have a meaningful impact and change on the experience of either the customer or your employees. And therefore, we should be able to really measure the impact of that. But unfortunately, a lot of cloud projects end up just becoming modernizing infrastructure. They don't really reach their full potential. People just spend a lot of money doing what they were doing previously, on-prem, and then moving that to the cloud. So it often ends up being a missed opportunity. What everyone's looking to do is to drive innovation. And for us, again, that means having a differentiated, a novel, a different experience that you can create for your customers or your employees, which then drives digital transformation. So that's the goal, but the thing we need to be careful of is about is making sure that we take advantage of what the cloud offers. And there's this perception, that digital is better, that we can use this technology to drive better experiences. But I think digital is a very overused word, and we need to be very careful about what we mean by digital. So for a lot of people, when they talk about digital, they often refer to the channel that the customer uses to engage. And for most people, digital means anything but the telephone. But I think we need to think about voice and the telephone as being a digital channel. We can use AI, we can digitize, we can create digital experiences on voice. Email is the original digital channel, but often it's the worst from a customer service perspective, and it's a very high cost of channel to serve. But each one of these different channels has their own properties. They're all good at different things. There isn't a one silver bullet. There isn't one channel that we can use to solve a customer problem. And we just need to think more carefully about when we offer a channel to a customer, which channel is the most appropriate for the task that they're looking to solve. Sitting behind these channels, we have lots of different user interfaces. We've got 4 primary user interfaces that customers can engage with in order to solve their problems. And again, each one of these user interfaces has its own properties. It has its own characteristics, and we need to be mindful of that when we're creating experiences. Quite often, we pay a lot of attention to design when we look at web and mobile experiences, but we don't often pay attention to, particularly conversational user experiences. Lots of people are playing with chatbots and voice bots, but really not considering how we can create experiences using that technology that work for the customer. And that should be a big focus. And just to quote Steve Jobs, as I quite often do in my presentations, we need to start with the experience and work backwards to the technology. We can't just bombard the customer with lots of different channels and user interfaces that don't work with them. We need to make sure that we start with the customer experience first. Now, the impact of people using digital technology is that it starts to create lots of data. And we're told, that data is the most valuable commodity that we have as organizations. It's the new oil. And if we use it wisely, we can outsmart the competition and gain competitive advantage. And all of this stuff is true. We are generating huge amounts of data now. You've probably seen at conferences like this when we talk about the growth in the amount of data that we're producing, and it's growing exponentially year on year. But not all of this data that we're creating, so every time I take a photograph and take a video, that's creating data, but not all of this data is being made available for organizations to drive better customer experiences. And I would argue that, the amount of data that customers are sharing hasn't really changed materially, over the last decade or so. But what has changed is our ability to unlock value from that data using AI, using machine learning. So the first thing that we need to do is start organizing that data in a way that we can start doing more with. And we're starting to see the emergence now of customer data platforms as a way of joining all of these different data silos together, recognizing that often the customer service environments, the contact centers, are where a lot of the data's at. But it's just contained within silos. So using this technology to kind of sort our data out to then make it ready to be used in the future is what we see a lot of focus on at the moment. And that's really important because when we think about customer effort and we think about trying to drive, better value for customers, it's really, data is key to that. If we haven't got a joined up data set, I would argue that it's impossible to reduce customer effort and to drive better customer experiences. The other really important thing about your data and getting it in order is that data really is the fuel for artificial intelligence. We talk about data being the new oil, but it really is the fuel that we're going to need to have in order to drive this wave of artificial intelligence change that we're seeing happening at the moment. And that's important because pretty much every product and every service and every experience will be touched by AI in some shape or form, if not now, in the coming months and years. So we really need to get ourselves ready for that. And thinking forward to where this technology is developing and how the cost profile of artificial intelligence is reducing over time, and recognizing the fact that, maybe it's not available to every organization at the moment, but as the cost profile decreases, just like any other digital technology, it will become ubiquitous, it will become everywhere, it will become, a part of every single experience that we have. In terms of where we are today with AI, I've got an example here. Hopefully you can see that. This is my iPhone, and really where we are with AI machine learning today is almost like a great pattern recognition machine. So what I can see here on my phone is I'm searching for burger, okay? And what is happening on my device is that it's searching not just for images of burgers, but for the word burger within the text that I've taken pictures of. So you can see a picture of my daughter there and a picture of burger on the screen up here. So what machine learning has done here, which is amazing really, it's recognized the pattern, the visual pattern of what a burger looks like, and it's categorized and tagged that, or it's been able to recognize the text in these different screens. Even here this is my local pub just down the road from where I live back in the UK. And it's even been able to recognize the word burger written on a chalkboard in my local pub. Now, this is incredible, really. This wasn't possible even just a few years ago. But we're seeing the power of this pattern recognition capability being applied to all kinds of different areas at the moment. And that's really fueled this first wave of AI that we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years, really, since we ran our first Disrupt conference. And what we've seen is that artificial intelligence in the context of customer service has been used to power voice bots and chat bots, but sitting behind that is really just pattern recognition. It's the ability to recognize words and images in this case, but words and natural language and speech. And it's, for those organizations that have implemented it, it's delivered huge amounts of value. We've got customers that have been able to, handle 30, 40% of their demand into their customer service environments using this technology. But as I'm sure you've all seen, we're entering into a new era now when it comes to AI. And this idea about generative AI has really captured the imagination of all of us, of the public, of businesses over the last few months. And we're spending a huge amount of time at the moment talking to customers about how we can harness this new wave of technology and how it can help drive value within their businesses. And we're going to be talking a lot, as you can imagine, about this at the conference today. Now, in very, very simple terms, what generative AI is doing is taking that pattern recognition capability that I described earlier on, the ability to recognize, for example, a burger or a boat or something, and it's turning that on its head, and instead of recognizing a pattern, it's generating a pattern. And we can see this being applied to images and obviously to words and text. It's very good at predicting and driving output and predicting what word's going to come next when you ask it to do something. So I thought I'd put this technology to the test a little bit to introduce our next guest on the stage. So I asked ChatGPT to write me an introduction to Mark Vidal at our conference on customer experience. But I added a little twist to it at the end, and I asked it to do it in the style of a rap. So I'm going to perform the rap now for you. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so can we have the beat, please? Okay. You ready? Okay, time to get the party started, so let's introduce. He's Mark Vidal. Yeah, you don't want to confuse. The man for disruption and ChatGPT. He's here to help us out, so you better believe. Mark's the man with the realist advice. His skills are unmatched and his vision's precise, describing the way that the future unfolds with knowledge and the skill to make it extra bold. Mark's the one for your customer care. He's going to make sure you get the best advice there. He comes with the knowledge and the out-of-box thinking. That's why he's here today. So let's start listening. Mark's the man when it comes to disrupt. He's got the ideas, so you better listen up. Seeing CX in a whole new light. And with his help, we're going to make it all right. Thank you.